So we're live. This is the 11th month in a row that we've been doing Legal AI Live. Welcome back, everybody who's here. We have, it may grow, but at least at the start here, a little bit of a smaller panel today, but with some regulars. We've got Damian Reel of Clio. That's a first, right? That's official.
First time officially, I'm a Cleon. It's true. Good to see you all.
All right. All
Congratulations.
right. And Ben Shore of Affinity Consulting, right? Ben, 4-month anniversary.
4 months today. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm Matthew Kurbis. I'm the subscription attorney, and so I mean, I'm very curious to hear from Damian, having just come where he's come from. So I wonder if we could just maybe start with Damian. This is why I love live. Okay, Damian just got home from the TLTF summit, right?
That's right. Yeah, in Austin, Texas. That's right.
Yeah. So let's get your experience on that. I have to guess there might have been a little bit of talk of AI at the summit.
I think they may have said one or two words about AI, and maybe 99.9999% of the talk was about AI. And so, yeah, so the TLTF Summit, for those who don't know, is the Legal Tech Fund. That is Zach Posner leads up a fund that really focuses all on legal technology. It's to say, legal technology, the water is warm, and some funds, like for example, Harvey is invested by Sequoia and a few other folks, right? But the Legal Tech Fund is really solely devoted to just legal tech. And so they put on an annual conference called the TLTF Summit, which is going on right now in Austin, Texas. And so I left a bit early because this morning I had a presentation to a bunch of appellate judges at a conference here in Minneapolis. So anyway, so that's the reason I left it early. But really, it's kind of like a who's who of legal technology, present company excluded, of course. But I think that there's it's a very expensive conference, and you have to apply to get in. That is, they have to vet you to say, are you worthy of joining this conference? So it's a bit weirder than, say, the ABA Tech Show or Legal Tech, anything like that. But it's a good group of folks, and it was a very elevated conversation. At the ABA Tech Show, of say any given person, I would say maybe only 1% of the people at ABA Tech Show are at the level of the people that 100% of the people at TLTF really know what the technology can do, how it's being used in legal. And so really, where at ABA Tech Show, you might have to assume zero knowledge. Here, you could assume like 95% knowledge and then just jump right into the interesting stuff. So anyway, that's it. That was this week I was there. But before that, I was in Rome, where I was talking AI to the Vatican.
Wow.
So I got invited to a small group of AI builders that talked with the Vatican. And one of the discussion points was, Sam Altman has said that we need to align AI with human values. And it turns out our pitch to the Vatican was saying the Vatican archives have a lot of human values that AI can maybe align with. So if you as the Vatican open up your data, wouldn't it be great if that data made its way into the large language models and to the collective wisdom? And so I got a text from somebody who said that actually might be happening. So at least a portion of the archives might be opened up to be public domain, to be able to be ingested by large language models and others.
If only
I
that
hope
could
this
happen.
confession finds you well.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And if only that could happen with large law firm data. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, if only the clients would allow that to happen. Yeah.
Right. If there was somebody to sanitize it. But wow, I mean, so that's a lot there. I will say I'll also remind the audio only folks, Damian was doing some air quotes there. So it's worth going to legalailive.com or Legal AI Live on YouTube to see the air quotes in context. ABA Tech Show, though, even though there might be like only 1% has that level, they want to get to the next level, right? So like it's still like we have to have all the conferences, but it's great to hear that it's really quite a group that goes. Maybe I'll be so lucky in future years to be there.
You deserve to be there, and Matt. And so I would say that to the anonymization point, maybe, if we could anonymize the data, that was a big discussion at TLTF.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a question as to, the law firm data about their clients, really the clients own that data. The law firms don't own that data. It's really, in the end, the client's data, because the clients can be able to, say, hey, give me my data back. And then you could essentially, in the old days, give them their folder of data back, the documents. But there was a discussion as to whether you could either anonymize that data, say replace first name, last name, and be able to, kind of quasi or de-identify those things. So we'll call that option 1 of the anonymization. Option 2 is to be able to essentially put tags on it. Say this is a slip and fall case in front of a grocery store, and this is the range of outputs for that. And so that kind of, slip and fall in a grocery store, that's not client data, that's just metrics or metadata. And so there's a real discussion as to the extent to which you could scrub the client's data to be able to maybe use it for other externally facing products. So if you're a lawyer that says, here's the percentage of slip and falls that go this way or slip and falls that go that way, maybe you don't need to get client consent to be able to get that anonymized data.
So I've got a question for Ben on this, but first I just want to welcome Nick. Nick, you want to say hello and where you're from?
Hi guys, I didn't realize I was going to be on here with the heavy hitters. This is great. I was also looking for. I thought Dennis was going to be involved again today, so
He decided to go on a trip with his wife last minute, and so you know what? Good for him, and he could do that now. He's semi-retired, right?
Good for him. Good for him. Yeah, I'm Nick Rishwain. I've been in legal tech. I'm calling in from California today. Been in legal tech for about 15 years. Great to see Damien and Ben. Looking forward to the talk.
Yeah. And just to catch you up, Damien brought us some news from TLTF Summit, and also that he was at the Vatican, and they might be letting OpenAI train on some of the Vatican secret data. So isn't that
Really?
Maybe we're early days yet.
That's cool.
Maybe. So Ben, going to you. So talk on this topic of, all this proprietary firm data. Speaking of Vatican data, some of what you do, right, is like helping the firms like securely leverage the data using AI for output and stuff, right? Like what's your perspective on all that?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're having we have multiple ongoing AI engagements right now with firms, and one of the first things they say is, well, we're really concerned about confidentiality and privacy, and we have to reassure them, yes, we are too. That's table stakes as far as we're concerned when we're dealing with law firms. We're certainly not going to recommend any free consumer AI products to you. That's not even under consideration. And that's where we've had to do a lot of work internally too, to really get into the privacy policies and make sure that the various plans, because it's not even product by product, but it's plan by plan sometimes. Like if you look at ChatGPT, just to take a well-known example, like it's not a big surprise that their free version and their paid version have different privacy policies, right? It's true of Copilot too, right? But when you even within the paid versions, I forget what their tiers are called, but like one of them's Plus, I think, and then there's Team and there's Enterprise, and like the lower end paid version still defaults to possibly training on your data, right? So you have to turn that off if you were using the low end paid version. My general recommendation for firms these days is if you're using ChatGPT, you probably should be using the Enterprise version to make sure you're getting the right privacy policy. Anything less than that, it looks to me, and I'm not a lawyer, to be clear. I might be the only one here who isn't, I'm not sure. But from my review of their privacy policies, it looks to me like anything less than the enterprise policy may not be great from a law firm confidentiality standpoint. So it's somewhere we're having to counsel them on is don't just pick a product, but also look at the plans within the product and make sure you review those privacy policies, because you're going to get different levels depending on where you're picking.
Yeah.
With Copilot, it's a little easier because for law firms, really, it's just Microsoft used to have Copilot. There isn't any. Copilot, what used to be called Copilot Pro is now Copilot Premium. That shouldn't apply to any law firms. That's consumer grade stuff. And so it's really just Microsoft 365 Copilot.
At least they decided to name it so everyone could understand it, right? Isn't that? Thank you, Microsoft.
Yeah.
No, so that's why legal tech consultants for firms exist, right?
Yes, yeah. I'm glad they changed the name away from Pro though, because so many lawyers were confused by it. So not just lawyers, so many professionals generally were confused because they were buying Copilot Pro because Pro means professional, right? So I'm a professional, I should be getting Copilot Pro. And then to find out, no, wait, Copilot Pro is for home users because Pro means home. Wait, what?
Exactly my point. So even though Dennis isn't here, though, I want to keep his tradition going of asking, what did you try in AI in the last, usually it's month to month. This is more month to month, but it's only been 2 weeks since we had to push October's. So, look, it's been 2 weeks. So since you're new, we'll start with you because we haven't heard from you yet. So you could even go back many months. But what's a recent thing that you've tried in AI that you would want to share with the audience?
Okay. This is not financial advice, but this has been my fun experience. I've recently been spending more time on Google Gemini. I do want to follow up on what Ben was saying, though, is I don't understand a little bit, and Damien's probably got more information on this for me. I don't understand why Copilot isn't the go-to in law firm usage, but because it is already, but the safety features are there from Microsoft. It's built in. I have been playing with since we also use Outlook at experts.com. I've been playing with it. Anyway, I digress. So this is my favorite story so far. I used Grok and I used Copilot for this. I tested both of them. I've been playing with an investment thesis on defense company stocks that this is probably in the next 5 to 7 years going to be largely a good investment. And so there was a stock that I was looking at, and what I had both Grok and Copilot do was a technical analysis of a particular stock. They both came back with, and this is, obviously was not in professional, this was just something that I was testing out. They both came back with similar results and probabilities of the stock going up versus probabilities of it going down, and so I thought both analyses were fairly decent, and I was kind of playing them against each other to see how their analysis would be. So I ended up buying the stock because they gave it both gave it somewhere in the park of 70-80% chance that it might move up and then have a breakout, which would have it, go up significantly. Both things happened. Now, the sad part of this is I bought 10 shares of this stock because it's, a very small investment, because I was testing out the AIs and their abilities and to see how their accuracy was. So it went up quite a bit, like over $55 a share within about a 3-week period, based on Grok and Copilot's, not financial advice, but their technical analysis. So I thought it was a lot of fun to test it that way. I've not tested it yet on something else, but it was just a trial and error as to see what they were capable of, and to see if I thought their analysis was reasonable, and to see if the game played out as it should.
And just like they didn't give you financial advice, they're not giving millions of people legal advice.
Advice either.
Right? Even
correct. And they were very clear about not giving financial advice. And I was like, that's fine. We're just doing this as a test, right? Let's play the game.
Right. Ben, how about you? Anything new in the last month or so?
Yeah, a couple things. So I do a lot of classes. I do a lot of training of mostly law firms on AI and Copilot particularly, but not just Copilot. And one thing I've started doing, because all my classes are recorded, and so what I've started doing is I download the transcript of the recording afterwards. And then I put that into, and I've tried a couple of different ones. Mostly I use Copilot, but I've also tried it with ChatGPT, and it would work with any of the LLMs really. I upload the transcript and I give it a prompt along the lines of act as an attorney who is interested in learning more about topic, carefully review this transcript and suggest ways I could improve this class, make it clearer, etc. Prompt's a little more involved than that, but not too much. And then it goes through the transcript and it comes back, and it does do a little bit too much of the, you did this great, and wow, you did that so well, and that was really clear. I'm like, okay, thanks. I don't need to hear that right now. But it does also then come back and often give me 4, 6, 8 other ideas of things I could add to the class or ways I could rephrase things. That's one of the more useful things I found about it, is because it's looking at the actual transcript, it can say, okay, at this point you said, and it gives me a direct quote from what I said live, in the training. It says, if you next time, if you phrased it this way, it might be a little clearer, more accurate, or whatever. Which I find that's pretty helpful. I mean, I'm not working off a script when I'm training, so I have to remember that. but at least reading that guidance, that tip, then hopefully the next time I'm giving that training, I go, oh, last time I did this, it said maybe I should word it this way. So I found that to be really interesting and helpful. The other thing I can't remember, I don't think I talked about this last time I was here. We, of course, just recently had local elections. And so I fired up a ChatGPT agent and I had it act as my ballot partner. And so for each, I wrote up a Word document where I expressed what my values and priorities were, socially, politically, economically, whatever. And then I uploaded that to the agent. And I do have a paid version of ChatGPT, by the way. I'm not doing this in the free version. And I pointed it at Ballotpedia and a couple of other hopefully reputable sources. And I said, let's go issue by issue and office by office and talk about the ballot. And so in the context of knowing what I had told it my values were, it was able to evaluate each issue in each office. And we were able to have a conversation about which candidates might be the best fit. And I didn't always agree with it, so I didn't vote strictly along the way the GPT recommended. But probably in almost every case, it made a convincing argument, and I went with it. But I found that to be very helpful, especially because a lot of these local issues are, wastewater district third commissioner position. It's like I have no idea who these people are. I don't even know what that job does. Like a couple of times, I actually asked the GPT, "What does this job do?" And it was able to go to the website for the wastewater commission and find the description of what that person's supposed to do. Because I have no idea whether Alice, Bob, or Carlos are a better choice for this role. I don't even know what the role is. So anyway, that was another really helpful use was having the GPT as a thought partner for that.
So I'm not a Grok user, though I see that to be sometimes like one of the more cynical AIs, and I wonder if like it would say, what does it do? Oh, it suckles on the teat of the taxpayer, and it just gets paid, taxpayer dollars for bureaucratic nothing.
I would not be shocked.
Right.
Shocked. My third AI use is I had it help me draft and then set up my fantasy football team. My fantasy football team is currently 3-8, so I guess that should tell you how well it did. I was ill prepared for this fantasy football season, and apparently the AI was as well.
I wonder how much better you would have done without the AI.
I don't know. It's funny because it's an affinity consulting AI league, and apparently the people who let the league software just auto draft for them are the ones winning. So maybe I should just let the league software auto draft rather than applying my own.
So a few years ago, Fastcase had a March Madness bracket, and I've not watched a college basketball game probably in about 15 or 20 years. And so I just took whatever the crowdsourced, that is what the collective wisdom did. And I think there's an idea that the wisdom of crowds, because I actually won that year, even though I'd not watched a single basketball game either 15 years before or that year. I won because I used the wisdom of the crowds.
I probably should have done that myself instead of letting the AI suggest sleepers and breakouts.
Yeah, but you know what? That's the fun of it right now, at least in my experience. Like if you're not testing these things on the what comes up in your life to see what the outcome is, then I feel like you're missing out doing that. Just to see what they're capable of.
And many years ago, pre-AI, I wrote an application, a software program that was supposed to pick the winners of NFL games based on stats. Like I was supposed to put in all these statistics and for a given game, it was supposed to predict who the winner was. Not point spread or anything, just win-loss. And I think I wrote, I forget how many lines of code it was. It was a pretty long app. And it took into consideration about 100 different stats, I think. And as I recall, it ended up at about 50%.
Well, so, and I think what our discussion here is going to the difference between probabilistic large language model AI and deterministic good old fashioned AI, because really the wisdom of the crowds that I talked about a few years ago is the good old fashioned AI, where they actually had statistics of how many people were voting up for these people or voting down for these people, who's going to win or who's going to lose. And that's good old symbolic AI is deterministic because it's actually reliable. And so I think this relates to the litigators in this room to say, what are the odds of winning before this judge for this cause of action in this jurisdiction? You could ask ChatGPT that and it would hallucinate all over the place. It's going to do no better than Ben's, brackets for what they're doing. But if you have the actual non-hallucinated cases, the motions from this judge, and if you have the fact that this judge has granted all the motions, like Docket Alarm, we have all of the motions that this judge has granted for this cause of action in this area. And you can imagine if you do that, you could be able to say there's a 60% chance of winning or a 25% chance of winning. And that's not hallucinated. That's just real numbers. So I think that what our discussion, even though started kind of frivolously, saying, this is brackets of sports, there's actually an application to legal tech to say, if you want the ground truth data, don't ask the large language model because it doesn't have it. Ask a tool that has the ground truth data.
Yeah.
I think go ahead, Matthew. It's your show. I'm sorry.
No, but by all means, Nick, please.
I think, Damien, you're right. This is, some people have called that then what the small language model, for lack of a better word, right? I mean, if I'm wrong there, Damien, but where you actually know what the input is. You're actually having specific inputs when you're looking for a specific outcome, so you've got how a judge rules, or you've got how something we'll use the judge ruling for this. If you've got the data and the statistics on that, you're not asking generative AI to create something from what it can freely find available, what's freely available. You're asking it to search a specific set of data and put it in, and the output on that is going to be entirely different. Definitely the game I was playing, Mike, with the stocks, it was maybe a little bit more like what you're describing, Damien, because they have some access to tons of freely available stock market information, right? So the analysis or the analysts' viewpoints, the long-term charting data, like it was looking at that stuff. And then I was interested in what it generated on its own from looking at that. But it did have a little bit more specific information or specific data sets that it could review for the output.
Damien, if I may jump in here, because actually, Dick, I'm glad I had you go first, because this is exactly on point of what I was going to say. Is I still would rather not rely on any large language model or multi-model solution based on its training data or what it could find from the internet. Period. Like even if it can, right? Like if I want higher quality results, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use AI to find some time to capture and curate the data that me plus AI determine is valuable financial data, sports picking data, legal, factual related data. And then I'm going to take my curated data that I found and curated with AI, and then I'm going to put it into a tool. And, I like Notebook, right? And I'm going to say, okay, only from this curated data, like, here's what I want. Right, here's what I'm trying to achieve and what I'm trying to do, and then I would ask the AI to help me pick the stocks or help me, not financial advice, right. Figure out which case, which is the applicable case law that applies or whatever, right? So like, and I know inside some tools you could just do this. That's the benefit of the wrappers, right? Like you just do it, but like I'm still not relying on any of that stuff. Trellis comes to mind, Damien, of what you were talking about with that data. And are they still a startup? They've been around for like 15 years now, right? Like. But like I got to imagine with like the Clio VLEX merger, law firms are uploading their court orders, into Clio.
Oh, well, and even better than that, I'm sharing my screen right now. And so here's a case here in Minnesota, and it's a trademark case. And if you were to ask any lawyer, what's the odds of winning this summary judgment motion, the odds they would say pretty good or not bad. And here I could say, well, the odds in all the courts ends up being about 54%. And then the odds in this court are, oh, by the way, ask ChatGPT this question. What are the odds of winning in all the courts versus this court versus this judge? 56% versus trademark cases, the odds of winning summary judgment are about 1 in 3. Ask any lawyer in America what the odds are, and they're going to say pretty good or not bad. Ask ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is going to hallucinate all over the place. Yes. But because we have the actual data from these actual summary judgment motions, now I could be able to go from analytics mode to research mode. Because now I can say, I want Susan Richard Nelson to grant my motion for summary judgment. So now I can say, here are the 161 cases where this judge granted summary judgment. So I can say, Your Honor, just like the case you decided in February, or just like the case you decided yesterday. And then you could be able to say, well, mine is a contract case. So I just want to find contract cases. So now I can find all the contract cases where she granted summary judgment. And now put the 54 of these cases, put that text into a large language model, and then say, here are my facts. To now put my facts into a motion in front of this judge that is statistically likely to win for this judge, for this court cause of action in this jurisdiction. So if you have this data, you're able to do that. If you don't, you're hallucinating.
This is the deterministic versus non-deterministic, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And then at a certain point, if you take it another step further there, Damien, at what point then does it become malpractice for the lawyer to not be using?
Great question.
That becomes, if I now know that my chances are 56% by following, certain protocol that others have had that have gotten the motion granted, but I'm not using a tool that tells me those, then am I actually doing my job for my client, or am I being negligent?
That's 100% right. And then what if you were to take this and say, if you were asked a lawyer, so I would say for the lawyers on this call, what's the average case length for civil rights cases that settle in the Central District of California?
Now we're talking my area. Okay.
Right. So how would any lawyer answer that? Or could any lawyer answer that?
They're pretty
Especially-
good, or they're, I've had, they'll do the balancing act, or,
Right. So especially the settlement part there, like how do you know from the dockets whether they've settled or not? So if you
Sure.
have the text of Bracino and you have that this is a civil rights case in the Central District, and you have the filed date and you have the terminated date, and you have all of the motions, and you know that most of the stipulations to dismiss the case usually mean that the case has been settled, then you could say of the 25 civil rights cases, some settle in as little as 12 days, but most of them take a year and a half. So if you have this ground truth data of the file date and the terminated date and then the cause of action, et cetera, it's not going to hallucinate. So you need that ground truth, whether you collect it yourself from your firm data or whether you collect it from the corpus of all the cases that have been filed. This is just a way that, if you try to answer this off the top of your head, you're going to hallucinate just like ChatGPT will.
Yep.
I have a follow-up question to your question, Nick. That is,
Yeah,
that we're not
sorry,
gonna,
Matthew.
No, that we're not going to answer. No, because I like that just sort of esoteric question of like, what does this mean? For like, is it malpractice to not use it? And that is, what if I have the tool Damien was just showing, and I know there's a 12% chance that no matter how we phrase this motion or this whatever, we're not going to win. Like that's the likelihood of win. But my business model is to bill time and do work, right?
It's an excellent additional. That's a great add-on to this,
Yeah.
to my question.
Yeah,
Wow.
right. I'm incentivized to do it anyway. But what if my business model is not the billable hour? Will I just give my client the best advice that, hey, it's pointless to file this motion because it's not going to be granted, and the data backs it up?
And I'm going to add another unanswerable question. Say, what if we have a sanctions motion and you say, hey, listen, judge, you and I know from this data that the odds of winning this are only 2%. And they filed this massive motion. This is a frivolous motion that I should get my attorney's fees for this 1 or 2% chance of winning.
And then
Ben, what do you
Ben.
Oh, did we lose Ben? Can anyone else hear Ben?
We lost Ben in audio. We don't have audio.
audio is not picking up.
Live. This proves we're live, everybody. We're not AI. No, we can't.
Oh, he's got to go.
Oh, he's got to
Yeah.
go. Okay. All right. Bye-bye, Ben. All right. Take care. So I know Ben said he's got some office hour stuff that he's doing with Affinity right now. So, but some other things that I actually want to touch on that Ben brought up earlier is the idea of him recording like all these trainings that he's doing, right? And the value of having that data, right? Like this is recorded, right? Like right now, I'm really just republishing it as a podcast because I don't have time to do anything else. But the Plod Pin and like similar sort of things out there that let you just record everything, all your interactions that are happening. I was at MaxLawCon last month. And the attorney's name is escaping me, but he's on an upcoming episode we recorded for Law Subscribed. They're live with the show. And he, on the back of his wallet, or the back of his iPhone, had like what I thought was a wallet, but it was actually like a recording device, like a Plod Pin, but it wasn't a Plod Pin. And when you're vibing at like a legal tech conference and you're, in mastermind conference, you're like, oh, that's a really good idea. Hey, could I record? And let's start over and let's continue this conversation. I thought, wow, that's amazing, right? And I've got like a microphone and I could like turn on my voice recorder app like in my phone, but he's just got like an AI tool that will like throw it up to the cloud and transcribe it and everything like right away. I have to do many more steps. So the value of having these tools of like, we're lawyers, so he asked for permission, right? Now, granted, we're also surrounded by other lawyers that didn't consent, but
Right.
like having their own side conversations. But I think like these. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of legal implications of privacy to it, but I love the idea of these tools, and I'm thinking about buying one. What do you guys think?
Damien, I have to jump in real quick because we discussed this at the CLA annual meeting, the legal technology committee that I'm on. And it's come up multiple times since. Like, I'm less concerned about that off the cuff situation as I am with, and I'm not I've never practiced. Okay. I went to law school, but I don't practice. I've been largely in legal tech my entire life, or my entire career. The issue that bothers me is when my company or my client turns on the auto recorder and then they have a meeting where they literally decide to do something they shouldn't be doing, the harassment takes place on the Zoom call, and they've recorded the entire thing. And, I mean, the discovery issues and the item of people forgetting that the AI note taker is on, and Those are the things that worry me more than the one-off using something and asking consent for somebody to use it. I think that's where I'm at, Damien.
Yeah. I've been thinking about the same thing too, and I think you've hit on all the right points. I would add that there's an aspect of this that maybe business is recording all sorts of things. For the obvious benefit is that if I have a meeting of 10 people, we can have the AI take the notes and be able to figure out who's going to do what, and essentially create the to-do tasks that go into Teams or to Slack. So there's so much upside to recording that, of course, business is going to do that. But for the reasons that Nick just mentioned, lawyers are maybe reluctant to do that. And the real question with their reluctance is how much of that recording is privileged. That is, if you're on the call with the lawyer and the client, of course, pre-litigation, this is a treasure trove of things. And pre-litigation, I think of this almost like email back in the 1990s. That is, you're like, oh gosh, people are putting in email stuff that would never put into a typewritten letter, right? And so that was a treasure trove of discoverable information. And I wonder if these recordings are also similarly a treasure trove of data for litigation fodder. So pre-litigation, that's number one. Post-litigation, I would say that maybe I could say, a lot of times I would stipulate as a litigator that anything after the date of the lawsuit is privileged, and I don't need to log in a privilege log any data after that. So I'd say the conversations with the lawyer after the date of the complaint under that scenario would not even need to be logged. So there would be less of a worry about that.
I think I would add to that.
That ends part 1 of this month's Legal AI Live. Make sure to subscribe to the Legal AI Live podcast at legalailive.com to catch part 2. You could also subscribe to our new YouTube channel or on any podcast app, just search Legal AI Live, and follow the Legal AI Live page on LinkedIn. See you next episode.